Hello everyone, hope you're all well. I am in the Stonygate area of Leicester, just off London Road. I think this is Stonygate. Today I want to talk about something I wanted to talk about for a while, but I've struggled to find a way of conveying it properly. About a year ago I saw a video on Rumble. It was about 8 hours long. It took a couple of sittings to get through. And it was traffic warden. Yeah, it took a few sittings to get through, and the video wasn't on YouTube, it was on Rumble. It was on there for a couple of weeks and then it came down. It was a fantastically made video. Obviously a lot of time, a lot of effort had gone into this video, and when it was took down a few weeks later, and then another video came up saying that it was all fake, which was very strange. But the video was talking about a Tartarian civilization that existed, originated in Russia and spread the whole of Europe. And this Tartarian civilization, I call it a civilization and not an empire. An empire suggests rule and ownership and control, and that's not what the Tartarian empire civilization was all about. This was a very peaceful civilization that didn't fight, didn't war. Everyone got on, everyone had free energy, free electricity. There was a strong spiritual belief, belief in God, and everything worked well. And this video resonated with me so much. It went on about mudfloods and a reset and a destruction of this Tartarian civilization. And buildings like this were said to be free energy buildings that gathered electricity from the ether via buildings like this.
Got timely break actually.
And looking at that, the little aerial thing at the top there has significance. Gathered, free electrical energy from the ether and was brought down into that section there, which would have housed a transformer of sorts, which would have boosted up the electricity to a usable level. And looking at that little area, now some of these buildings have had clocks put in them, which is quick and easy to do, but this one hasn't. Now, looking at those louvers angled downwards to repel any water, but it only makes one sense to have that, and that's to cool that area down, that part of the building. I keep pausing because people keep walking by. I'm a bit conscious about what I'm talking about. But yeah, that would have housed a transformer which would have boosted up electricity. And these buildings are made from red bricks. Now, red bricks contain a lot of iron oxide, iron ore, which we also know is very conductive, which played a part of it. And I think what was seen in this video, that these buildings are all over the country and all over Leicester were once part of a network of free energy buildings. Yes, it looks like a church, but it doesn't really look like a church either, does it? If I zoom out a little bit, it doesn't really look like a church. But these buildings would have set up a grid connected by underwater channels, because electricity and water do work well, and work well in the right conditions. But coming back to this Tartarian empire, which was said to be existed up until the mid-1800s, when a reset took place, Now this is where it gets a little bit sinister, because there was an evil faction within our realm that wanted to change things and wanted to demolish that free world and usher in a new normal. As we've heard quite recently, a new normal is like a new thing. And in this video it said that the buildings were destroyed with energy weapons that resonated on a frequency with the building. Everything has a frequency, and these energy weapons basically turned a lot of the buildings to dust. Just vibrated them to absolute dust. And these buildings were put on a protected list, a list of protection, so they weren't to be destroyed. Now, we're all very well aware of the term listed building, listed trees, listed bridges, and I believe that is where that came from, that terminology. And once the said buildings were destroyed, weather manipulation was then employed, which caused rains. And given the amount of dust created by the destruction of all these buildings, rains then caused a mud flood. And this is where the term mud flood comes from. Now, what the mud flood did was raise the floor level up by several feet, 6 feet, 8 feet probably. Six to 8 feet. Now, this would explain why a lot of the buildings, I've not surveyed the entire country, but I've done a lot around Leicester, where a lot of the windows are sunken below the ground level, and in some cases it looks like preventative measures were put in place to protect some buildings, like by putting shuttering around the lower level windows. And some of the buildings in Leicester are such a mishmash of floor levels, which kind of supports the mud flood theory. And I've been going around Leicester, I'll take some photos and I'll put them up at the end so you can see them and you can make your own determination. But you'll see a lot of these buildings around Leicester and around the country, they're everywhere. In fact, these spirals and these churches that pop up, these beautiful buildings that pop up and stick out the landscape with their little antennas off the top. And now we need to get to the point of who'd have done this. Okay, now it's believed in the video that I saw, and this video resonated with me so much that I felt, resonated of truth and of what really happened. And if you look at our historic timeline, nothing makes sense. Everything seems to start from like the 1900s. Everything prior to that is all a bit hazy. Something happened in 1266, 1066, or this, that, the other. But an evil faction on this realm destroyed everything somewhere in the 1800s and ushered in the new normal, the way that we live now. And if you think about it, we're all playing the Hunger Games. We're all fighting for somewhere to live. We're fighting for jobs, fighting for healthcare, and this is the life that they brought in, our so-called caregivers. They've even got us at the point now, the point they're making this video, of people fighting in the streets. They've got us fighting and killing each other. And the First and Second World War, in my personal belief, were a continuation of that destruction of buildings. While people were being bombed all over the country, being bombed in London, I think there was one bomb that landed in Buckingham Palace Gardens. So the big red flag there is why the general people were bombed and terrorised. And these beautiful buildings, after the reset, were claimed by this certain faction as their own. So the castles and the posh grand buildings were claimed by the new owners. Freemasonry, you might call it. Well, it's not Freemasonry, it's stolen masonry. So this reset, basically I'm saying, is evidence of mass genocide, not just in Leicester, but the whole of the earthly realm. And it kind of explains a lot of things. It explains why these buildings don't fit into the landscape in a timeline. And we're told that they belong to a Gothic era. What Gothic era?
Hi.
I think the truth is they've been lying to us from the start, and if you remove or get rid of the majority of the adult population and all you're left with is children, and if you look at some of the films like Oliver Twist and Dickens and some of the stories of the 1800s, there seems to be a lot of children and not a lot of adults. And this kind of makes sense with a reset, because if all you've got is children, they know no different, and you can tell them anything you want about the history. And I think through the whole of the 1900s was a post-apocalyptic era. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it felt very apocalyptic then. My parents were around in the 50s and 60s, and they were burning coal in houses. They'd have a bath once a week. They'd all share a bath. I mean, what is that all about? There was no healthcare system, no National Health Service until the 40s or 50s, after the war. So there was no care before that. And like I said before, the First and Second World War, in my belief, were a continuation. Young men duped into a war to continue this destruction. Men were told if they didn't go and fight, they would receive a white feather and they'd be ostracised in their community. You know, they wouldn't be able to get food, they wouldn't get this because they didn't go and fight. Now, my grandfather was killed in the Second World War, so I feel a personal sense of loss and betrayal. That my grandfather was duped into believing that he had to go and fight to save his family. So the whole premise of the videos I'm making are to investigate this, not just take it for granted, but go around and look for evidence of supporting this. So where were the evildoers, the provocateurs, hiding while all this destruction was going on? Well, I personally believe they were hiding in bunkers and tunnel systems that still exist today. And these tunnels and bunkers are probably hundreds, if not thousands of years old, created by quarry works and tunnelling and mining that were adapted. And that's where they were hiding until all the work had done, all the damage was done. And then they came out and rebuilt, remodeled, reshaped, took control, took ownership. And a lot of the videos I'm looking at or doing is looking for evidence of tunnels and bunkers and these beautiful buildings which just seem to scream out at me like they're trying to tell me something. So I'm trying to look for evidence that supports this theory, because it just resonates so much with me. So when you see these buildings, just ponder for a minute about their history, because they used to give us free energy, free electricity. There was no gas used like we use now. Everything was electrical and everything was free. And if you remove that free energy and you bring in pylons and cables, electricity and gas and water, if you look at society now, gas, water, electricity are all basic needed commodities to survive in day-to-day world. But they have now become weaponized by a system where they can be withdrawn. Water, gas, electric, they're all controlled and ownership and all used as a tool to control. I hope this video resonates with you a little bit and gets you to stop and think about, because a massive crime has been committed here as little as 150 or 175 years ago that nobody's questioning. So as I go about making my videos, that is the underlying reason why I'm doing it and what I'm looking for. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I've covered everything. I don't want to drive away and think, oh, I forgot to say that, I forgot to say this. But the evildoers that created the world we live in now were responsible for all these deaths. And if you look closely at society now, it's continuing. If you look at what happened in 2020, you know, you can see that they can control us all with the flick of a switch. And we need to reclaim that power. So, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all again soon.